So today we'll be starting with clock and calendar, which is our new topic, new chapter. So clock and calendar, both of these are things, we are familiar with. We know what a clock is, we know what a calendar is, right? So we'll just be going through some questions and also some theory that we have pertaining to this chapter. Okay, we'll get right into it. So this is the basic, we all know what a clock is. So this is the basic structure of an analogous clock. So there are mainly, like, broadly two kinds of clocks. So one is analogous, one is analogous. I'll switch to a better color. Black is very pale, right? So let's switch to not exactly pale, but I would say monotonous. Let's switch to purple. Okay, so one is analogous and the second is digital, right? So a digital clock is, I think kids these days are more used to digital clocks and digital watches, and also obviously in your phone the time is usually seen in the digital way, right? So basically what we mean by the digital clock is that when instead of the clock being of this sort where you have to look and figure out the time is given to you. So it will be written, if it is 3:12, it will be written as 3:12 or 3:40 or whatever, right? So that's what a digital clock is, and this is what an analogous clock is. Basically there is a certain way in which the letters are mentioned, and then you look there, you have the hour hand, the minute hand, the second hand, you look at what's happening and then you figure out the time. So yeah, so that's what an analogous clock is. So in the questions that we will be having pertaining to clock and calendar, the analogous clock is what we'll be taking into consideration. There are also some questions that are asked which are just based on time. You will not need any concepts of this clock. It's just purely based on time. We'll also do questions of that sort. Okay, don't worry. So this is the basic structure of a clock. So you usually have a smaller hand, as you can see, this blue one, and a larger hand, right? So, and the smaller hand is the hour hand, and the larger hand is the larger as in the longer hand is the minute hand, and then there will be an even longer hand which is usually very thin. And I think for almost all clocks this one will be in red color, right? All clocks that I can remember in my house, the second hand has been in the right color. So yeah, there's another longer, thinner hand. We call it the second hand. Okay, so these are the three parts of a clock in terms of the hands. So this is the basic structure of a clock. And now we'll just go through some very basic concept that we already know about minutes and seconds. So 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds, right? So basically a minute is 1/60th of an hour. So you take an hour and you divide it into 60 parts. What we mean by a minute is 1/60th of that part, which is why a minute is 60 seconds, right? So for example, if you see this figure of the clock, you see these small lines here, right? What are these lines? These all show you minutes. So this is 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5, right? If you start from here, 1 2 3 4 5, so you have 5 here, 5 here, and so on and so forth. You have 12 such sections of 5, and this gives you 60 minutes. 60 minutes make up 1 hour. 60 seconds make up 1 minute. Okay, so that's how it happens. So a minute is 1/60th of an hour. So you have an hour, you divide it into 60 parts, that's when you get a minute. And then you have 1 hour, as I said before, and as all of us already know, 1 hour is 60 minutes. So if you write this in terms of seconds, it is 3600 seconds. How did you get this? Basically, you know that just give me a second. Yeah, you know that 1 hour is 60 minutes, right? 1 minute is 60 seconds. Okay, so right, so 60, if 1 minute is 60 seconds, 60 minutes can be written as 60 into 60 seconds, right? You're just multiplying into 60 on both sides. Okay, so what is 60 into 60? 6 are 36. 0 0, that is how you get 3600 seconds. Okay, so that's how you get this whole formula of 1 hour being equal to 3600 seconds. These things are just basic. It's not like these are very important. I just thought I'll just mention these things. Okay, moving on. Now there are some points that will be important when we do questions. I've also given a clock here. I'll just draw the hand. That's why I've taken a clock with no hands, because I can draw it as I teach. Okay, so the hands of a clock are in a straight line in two scenarios, when they are coincident and opposite to each other. So what is a straight line? Obviously, you know, this is a straight line, right? It's at 180 degree. That's what we call a straight line. Now, when are the hands of the clock in straight line? There are two. So when we mention hands of a clock, we mean two hands. We mean the minute hand and the hour hand. We do not mean anything other than these two. Okay, so when we say hands of a clock, the only thing we mean are the minute hand and the hour hand. We do not mean the second hand. Okay, because generally, you know, when people talk about the hands of the clock, those two are the hands that they talk about. So if the second hand is being mentioned anywhere, it will usually mostly be specifically mentioned. Okay, so when do you have the hands of the clock in a straight line? So let's say this is the minute hand. I am very bad at drawing, but I'll try. Yeah, so let's say this is the minute hand. I told you I was bad at drawing. Okay, let's just shift the circle. And then we have an hour hand. Okay, let this be the okay, I'll draw it in a different color so it doesn't confuse you. What color do we take? Let's take yellow for the hour hand. So say this is the hour hand. So now, okay, now when are these in the straight line? One case is when you have, just give me a second, yeah, one case is when you have the, let's say, how do you write 6 o'clock? So 6 o'clock means the hour hand will point to 6 and the minute hand will point at 12, right? So then you would have the minute hand pointing at 12. Okay, now if you look at both of these hands, these are in a straight line, right? I mean, ideally, just if you remove the part that my drawing is bad, it's supposed to be in a straight line, right? So just think of how the clock will be at 6 o'clock, right? So it will be in a straight line. So this is one case when the hands of a clock come in a straight line, and the second case is when, I'll show it to you, just give me a second, right? So the second case is when you have both of these coinciding. So the first case that we looked at, these were opposite to each other, right? The first case, these were opposite. The second case is when both of these coincide. So what time is this? 12. At 12 o'clock, both of the hands coincide, and that is also, if in that case also both of these are straight. Okay, straight means it's in a straight line, right? So if you draw a line, both the minute hand and the hour hand will come under that line. Not under that line, in that line, right? So this is another case. That is when they're coincident. So basically they are in a straight line in both of these two scenarios. Okay, so this is when these are in a straight line. Now, when do they occur at a right angle? First of all, what is a right angle? So right angle is an angle when two lines are at 90 degree, right? This is called a right angle. What is the case when you have these two minute and hour hand in a right angle? So let's do. Now we'll draw them both with the same color, since there is, I mean, it's not coinciding, right? So we'll draw with the same color. So if this is the minute hand and this is the hour hand, okay, this is the right angle, right, 90 degree. So at 3 o'clock it will be in the right angle. Similarly at 3:30 it will again be in a right angle. So let's say you remove this. If the minute hand faces downwards, again it's in a right angle, right? So this is again in a right angle. Instead of drawing these fancy images, I think I'll just draw straight lines, which I think will be easier for you to understand. Right, so let's say this is the hour hand and this is the minute hand. This is the right angle. And also if it is in this case, when you have the hour hand here and the minute hand here, this is also a right angle, right? So all of these are cases when it's a right angle. So now how many times does this occur? This occurs twice in 1 hour. How? So take any random hour. Let's do one thing. We will take 12. Okay. So at 12:15 it's in a right angle. How do you show 12:15? The I'm sorry, what is this called? The hour hand will be at 12. The minute hand will be at 15, right? So this is one case. And then what's the second case? Okay, I'll give you some time. Tell me if you can figure out what the second case is. Basically, the second case, in the R12, like the R has to be 12 and the hands of the clock should occur at a right angle. Okay, just try to figure out. Okay, so it is when it's at 12:45, right? Again, it will be a right angle. Okay, similarly, so for every hour, the hands come at a right angle twice. So if you take 1 for example, look at the right angle for 1. The right angle for 1 would be at 20 and then the next would be at 50, right? So like this, the right angle happens twice in every hour. Now both hands of a clock occur in a straight line once in an hour. So what do we mean? Straight line, opposite ends. So like I said in the beginning, straight line can also mean coincident, right? Like we talked about 12, when it's 12 o'clock, both of them will be in the straight line, but they can also mean opposite ends. So in the opposite ends, it happens only once in an hour. So basically whichever hour, let's take 3. So if the hour hand is at 3 and the minute hand is at 9, this time is 3:45, right? So this happens only once in an hour. So okay, so see, the hour hand can have basically 12 positions. It can be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now whichever position the hour hand is at, you can always draw a minute hand right opposite to it, right? But this happens only once in an hour. So for example, if it is at 2, you can draw the minute hand at 8, 2:40. Okay, this happens only once in an hour. Similarly, 12:30, 6 o'clock. So like so you can draw it only once in an hour for every hour. Okay, so this only happens once. And this is what we so these are some points you need to know. These kind of questions might be asked, concerning the hands. So you need to know what it means to be at a 90 degree, you need to know what it means to be in a straight line, and yeah, these are mainly just some things that knowing these things will help. Okay, so now we've only studied the clock part of clock and calendar. We still have the calendar part left, but before that, let's just do some questions from the clock part, just to so that you can feel at peace that okay, I know what is going on. Okay, so example 1, a bus for Delhi leaves every 30 minutes from the bus stand. Ramu told Samir that the last bus had already left 10 minutes ago and that the next bus would leave at 9:35 a.m. At what time was this information given to Samir? This is our question. Okay, so basically you have a bus for Delhi leaving every 30 minutes from the bus stand. Ramu told Samir that the bus had already left 10 minutes ago and that the next bus, so we'll look at this part first. The next bus would leave at 9:35 a.m. So if the next bus would leave at 9:35 a.m., when would the previous bus have left? 30 minutes ago, right? Why? Because we have been given that a bus leaves every 30 minutes. So if the next bus will leave at 9:35 a.m., the previous bus would have left at 30 minutes minus 9:35. What is that? So basically from 35 we need to reduce 30 minutes. So that's 35 minus 30, which is 5. Okay, basically 9:05. So now we know that the bus right before this left at 9:05 a.m. Okay, this is crucial information. Now Ramu told Samir. Now what do we need to find? Do we need to find when the last bus left? No, we need to find when Samir got this information. That's our question, right? So let's see. Ramu told Samir that the last bus had already left 10 minutes ago. So when did Ramu tell this to Samir? When Ramu talked to Samir, at that time the bus had left 10 minutes ago. So what does that mean? Ramu talked to Samir about this 10 minutes after the bus left, right? Why? Because it's given that Ramu told Samir that the last bus had already left 10 minutes ago. 10 minutes ago, what does it mean? 10 minutes before. So basically Ramu and Samir talked about this 10 minutes after the bus had left. So if the bus left at 9:05 a.m., what is 10 minutes after that? Plus 10. What is plus 10? 9:15 a.m. right? So if to 9:05 a.m. if you add 10 minutes, you get 9:15 a.m. So this is the time this information was given to Samir. So 9:15 is the answer. Okay, so how did he get this? Basically all you need to do is right, so Ramu told Samir is that, see, just the next bus would leave at 9:35. So you know that the bus before left at 9:05 a.m. and then you know that Ramu told Samir about this 10 minutes after the bus left, which is 9:15 a.m. and so this information was given to Samir at 9:15 a.m. Okay, that's it. Moving on to the next question. How many times does the hand of a clock coincide in a day? Now this is quite a tricky question. I mean, of the questions that are asked for your entrance exams, questions are generally easy, but this comes some sort of like in the difficult level of those questions, but I thought, you know, I'll include it because it will be a good thinking exercise for all of us. Okay, so basically what you need to find is how many times does the hands of a clock coincide in a day. Now what did we say about the hands of a clock coinciding? Basically, if you let's draw, I'll do one thing, I'll just bring this figure of the clock that we had, because if I were to draw a clock, I've told you how bad my handwriting, I mean my drawing is, so I don't want to take that risk. I thought I'll just bring the figure that we have. Okay, so here, okay, so now if you look at 12, it coincides at 12:12, right? Okay, so at 12 it coincides at 12:12, so 1, that's one time that the hands coincide. Now when does it coincide for 1? If the hour hand is at 1, where does the minute hand have to be? At 5, right? Because 1:5 it coincides here. Okay, if the hour hand is at 1, the minute hand has to be at 5. This is when it coincides. So basically it coincides 1 hour 5 minutes after. So it coincided at 12:12 first, and then it will coincide at 1:05. And similarly next it will coincide at 2:10 basically. So it will coincide at, you know, so this is the hour hand, this is the minute hand at 2:10. Okay, so then similarly you have it coinciding at, when for 3, when will it coincide? At 3:50. Okay, similarly for 4 it will coincide at 4:20. Okay, at 4 it will coincide at, you know, when the hour hand is at 4 and the minute hand is at 20. At 5, 5:25. At 6 it will coincide at 6:30. Now the thing is, so this is what people think of, right? This is our normal thinking process, but there's a catch here, and the catch is that it does not coincide at exactly this point. Why? Because, okay, so up until 6 it might, but after 6, for example, for 7, if I am saying 7:35, okay, up until 12, from 12 to 6 this might work, it won't be an issue. But when you move on to 7, the problem with 7 here is that if the hour hand is at 7, and okay, I'm saying at 7:35, so okay, in terms of minutes, if you were to write, this is 5, 10, 15, right? So like if the minute hand comes here, it means 15, 20, 25, 30, okay. So now if I'm saying, the problem here that we have is that if I say 7:35, okay, we might think, right, this should work, but the thing is, the catch here is that for at 7, the hour hand, how does the hour hand move? When the 7 o'clock begins, it will be here, and by the time it reaches 8 o'clock, the hour hand reaches 8, right? Now how does it move? Does it move all of a sudden? Is it that, you know, when you reach 7:59, the hour hand moves, you know, just like hour hand from being at 7 it just directly moves at 8. No, it is a gradual movement, right? So I mean, just go take the clock, look at the clock in your house, you will see the movement is gradual. So basically the hour hand moves bit by bit. Okay, so when the time is say 7:35, the hour hand will not be at 7 exactly. The hour hand will be somewhere between. So let's say this is 7. Okay, this is 8. At 7:35, the hour hand will be somewhere between 7 and 8. It will have moved a bit. Because why? Because see, by the time it becomes 8, the hour hand has to reach 8, right? So at 7:35, it will be somewhere between 7 and 8. Okay, so they will not coincide at 7:35. They will coincide at, somewhere at like 7:37 or something like that. That is the point when they will coincide at 7:37 or 7:38, somewhere around that. They will not coincide exactly at 7:35. So I hope this is clear. Why do they not coincide exactly at 7:35? Because when the hour hand starts at 7, it starts at 7, but by the time it becomes 8 p.m, the hour hand has to reach here, right? So basically, let's say this is 7, this is 8. Okay, if the hour hand is here, by 8 p.m, the hour hand has to reach here, and this cannot happen abruptly. It needs to change bit by bit. So by the time it's past 7:30, the hour hand will have reached somewhere here. Okay, so but still it will coincide. This will coincide at about 7:37 or so. Okay, we're not saying it won't coincide, it will coincide. So every hour coinciding works, but the problem, like the difference, I'll tell you where the catch comes. But before that, similarly, if you take 8, so how do you get it to coincide here? It has to be somewhere at around 8:43. When it is somewhere around like at 8:43 or 45, then it will coincide. So the hour hand will be somewhere. So what will happen to the hour? So when you say, okay, let's first look at the minute hand. When you say 8:43, the minute hand will be somewhere here, right? And the hour hand will be between 8 and 9, which is also somewhere here. That is when they'll coincide. So at around 8:44 or something like that. Now between 9 and 10, when will they go? So we're basically just looking at when they will coincide at every hour. We started with 12, we said that at 12:12 they'll coincide. At 1 we said at 1:05. At 2 we said 2:10, 3:15, 4:20, 5:25, 6:30. But then from 7 onwards we realized the hour hand also moves. So we also need to take that into consideration. But it does coincide every hour. Okay. So at 8 also it coincides. At 9, so if it's 9, it will coincide at around 9:40, again somewhere between 9:45 to 50. Like say 9:47 or so, it will coincide. So at 9:47, the minute hand will be here, the hour hand will be here in between 9 and 10. So it will coincide. So somewhere between 45 and 50, the hand will coincide. Now, now between 10 and 11 also the same thing. So somewhere between 10:50 to 55, the minute hand will be here, the hour hand will also be here, and it coincides. Okay, so how many times has the hands coincided by now? It has coincided at every hour, right? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it has coincided 11 times now. Now the catch, now we move on to our catch. When will it coincide at 11? So is it between 11 and 12? So the thing is, if it is between 11, let's say somewhere between 11 and 12, but let's say like 11:57 or something of that sort. Okay, so if the hour minute hand is here, the hour hand is here, the thing is between 11 and 12 it will not coincide. Why? Because as 11 moves, so you know that it's going to coincide at 12:12, right? So here, okay, I'll tell you. We know that the clock will coincide at 12:12. All of us have seen how the clock looks at 12, right? So I'll just draw it. Okay, this is how the clock looks at 12:12. Now, how does the clock look at 11 o'clock? it looks like this. The hour hand will be at 11, the minute hand will be at 12. This is how the clock looks at 11 o'clock. Now let's look at 11 p.m. in particular. Okay, between 11 to 12 p.m. Let's just take a very close look at how that works between 11 to 12 p.m. Okay, how does that work? So 11:05. So this is 11 o'clock. 11:05 would be somewhere here. 11:10, 11:15, 11:20, 11:25, 11:30. By the time it becomes 11:35, this will have moved, the hour hand will have moved a bit to the side. Okay, then 11:40, the hour hand will have moved a bit more. Okay, 11:45, it will have moved. 11:50. By the time it becomes 11:55, the minute hand will be here and the hour hand will be very close to 12. Okay, so when it becomes 11:55, I'll just draw this again. So what does 11:55 mean? Basically, the minute hand will be at 11, right? That is what it means for it to be 55. The hour hand will not be at 11, it will be very close to 12 because it is 11:55, just 5 more minutes for it to be 12, right? Then they will meet. When will they meet? They will actually meet only at 12 p.m. Okay, they will only meet at 12 p.m. Okay, or like very close to 12 p.m. So if you take from 12, basically if you go from 12 a.m. to 12 p.m., the clocks coincide 11 times. People sort of tend to think 12 times, but no, it happens only 11 times. That the reason is as we discussed. So as we began, so here all of these from 12 to 6 it is easy. You can just say 3:15, 4:20, it happens. But after 6:30 onwards, we also need to take into consideration that the hour hand moves bit by bit, right? That is something that we need to take into consideration. So because of that, so for example, if so at 7, when will it coincide? It will coincide between 35 to 40. This is the point when it will coincide at 7, right? So if the hour hand will be somewhere here and the minute hand will be somewhere here. At 8, it will coincide between 8:40 to 8:45. That is when it will coincide. Okay, so then the hour hand will be somewhere here between 8:40 to 8:45. The hour okay, sorry, yeah, so between 8:40 to 8:45, the hour hand will be somewhere here and the minute hand will also be somewhere here. Okay, and then between 9 and 10, it will coincide between 9:45 to 9:50. Between 9 and 10, that when will it coincide? It will coincide between 9:45 to 9:50. So similarly, between 10 and 11, it will coincide between 10:50 to 10:55. This is what I explained in the beginning, right? So because the hour hand keeps moving. And so between 11 and 12, it will coincide between 11:55 to 12. Mostly it is at 12. So the initial, when we took 12, we took that it coincides at 12, right? So this is the same case. So both of these are the same case. So this happens only once. So the total number of times the clock, the hands of the clock coincides between 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's 11 times, not 12. So now in a day is from 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. and then from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. right? This is how a day is counted, we all know, right? So now here it happens 11 times. Similarly, from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. also it will happen 11 times. I mean, this whole thing that we talked happens again, right? So here we started from 12 to 12. Like we started from 12 and we went to 11, right? So that same thing happens again 11 times. So the total number of times will be 11 plus 11, which is 1 plus 1, 2, 1 plus 1, 2, 22. 22 is the answer. So like a lot of people, they think 24 is the answer because, they think, okay, it coincides once every hour. There are 24 hours in a day, 24. No, but there is a catch, and the catch is at this 11 p.m. Okay, because the problem is, just think about when will it coincide at 11 p.m. That's the only question you need to answer. Basically, when will it coincide at 11, and then you will get your answer. So basically, when they coincide at 11, it is also the same thing that happens at 12, and that is why there is nothing, there is an overlapping. So you only take it 11 times. So then you add it 11 plus 11, 22. So that is the times the hands of a clock coincide in a day. So this actually comes towards like the difficult side. Such questions, these difficult questions are generally rare in your entrance exam. I just thought I will add it because I felt it was a very interesting question, and it's something that, you know, people usually get wrong. But I mean, such questions are not usually asked. It's something, I mean, not usually asked in the sense, it is rarely asked because it comes in the difficult side. Okay, so as of now we are done. So this is all that you have under clock, under the clock section. The next section is calendar. In the clock section, this is all that you have. So just like I said at the beginning, these are just some points that you need to note, the structure, and then these are the important points that you need to note. Once you do that and you do a couple of extra questions, a couple of example questions, I mean, we have discussed example, we'll also be having an example class, we'll also be having assignments. Once you're done with all of that, you will be good to go for the clock part. And now for the calendar, we'll have yet another session. Okay, thank you.